Banking may never be your favorite aspect of your business, but it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be intimidating. I hope that you'll walk away after this business blend feeling more comfortable, because business banking doesn't have to be scary. And I'm going to be talking about 5 business banking best practices that you can use to make your day-to-day banking easier. So join us for our business blend here at Umpqua Bank.
Hi everybody, my name is Caitlyn. I work here at Umpqua Bank actually. I've worked here for 6 years. I'm a relationship banker, which just means it's my job to kind of maintain the relationships with the people in Pullman and see what you do, help you with whatever you're trying to do, either personal or business. Over my 6 years here, I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen all types of businesses, small ones, big ones, successful ones, unsuccessful ones. And I just kind of wanted to do this presentation to give some tips of things that I think that would help any size of business that came and sat down with me. Just because money is something in general people don't really feel comfortable with, and especially if you're running a small business, it's probably not your favorite part of your day. So these are just some tips that I think that will help make your business run a little bit smoother. All right, I'll just get started by kind of going over my top tips, and then we'll talk about each one of them. My first one is get to know what your bank can do for you. Ask them questions, start a relationship with them. Kind of like you guys were saying, a lot of people go to the bank every day, they do their deposits, go home, and banks are a wealth of resources for you, and so get to know what your bank can do for you. Second, get your documents in order. I get a lot of people that sit in front of me, and they say, hey, I have a business, but they have nothing for me to work with. Banks, unfortunately, are really document-based, and so having your documents in order, I think, is a really helpful thing. And I'll kind of go over some of the documents that I recommend. My third tip is keep your business and your personal finances separate. This one's pretty basic. I've seen a lot of my customers get in trouble because they commingle their personal and their business, and I'll go over a couple reasons why, but it's just in general, it makes it a lot easier for you. Number 4, protect yourself from fraud. There's a huge amount of fraud going on right now. This is the number one, I would say, really pay attention to, because that can really get you in trouble. And number 5, have an emergency plan. There's emergencies all around you all the time. And so I'll go over a couple tips of things that I think will really help you in case of an emergency. Okay, first, get to know what your bank can do for you. I just want to point out, bankers are not accountants or lawyers. We do get this mixed up all the time, and we are kind of in the middle, because we do need documents from taxes and from legal documents, but we can't give you tax advice. And we cannot give you legal advice about your business. We can't tell you if you can sue somebody. We can't tell you those kind of things. So just kind of keep that in mind. Definitely ask your bankers questions and they can guide you. But if they say you have to talk to your accountant about that, don't be offended. Okay, here's some things that we do. We help with your daily cash flow. So that's the one most people know: depositing, withdrawing, getting change for your tills if you have an in-person business. POS transactions. Did everybody fill out POS on there? Everybody got it? So POS stands for point of sale. So we help with this. Point of sale transactions are any credit cards that you take. So that means on your website, that means in person if you have like a till in your physical business. If you send out invoices, that kind of thing, those are point of sale transactions, and banks can help you with that. We help you with building credit. We see a lot of things. We can help you with credit cards, loans. We can give you advice about the types of credit that you need, the types of credit that you qualify for. So that's something that your bank can help with. We help with building your savings. So we can start by a really small savings, depositing small amounts into things. If you have some savings already, we can show you how to grow it. Fraud protection. And I'll go over this in some of the later slides, But banks are a really good place to start for advice about helping protect your business from fraud, and also we have some systems in place to help you with that. And another thing that we can help with is available capital. So this is just helping you find available capital for your business. And that could be a loan, it could be a savings account, it could be a credit card, those kind of things. We can help with that. And then we also have partners to fill in the gaps for things that we can't do. So things like SBA, so the Small Business Association. That's not something that we do at the bank, but it's a partner. So we can help get you connected with the Small Business Association and do things through that. Credit cards. So not all banks and not all credit unions have their own credit cards, but if they don't, they have partners that they can help get credit cards through. Commercial lending. So most banks, when you walk in, most bankers don't do commercial lending, but they usually have partners or other departments in their bank that do commercial lending. So that would be things like getting a building or lines of credits for a farm, those kind of things. Payroll services. So a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of banks have partners like Paychecks or things like that that'll help you with your payroll services. So they'll help you take the taxes out, have insurance, all type of things like that to really help your payroll services go smoother. Or also investments. So most in-person banks, when you deposit with them, they don't do investments in-house, but a lot of them have partners to help you with those kind of things. Okay, whoever was talking about questions, these are some questions that I think would help you if you go talk to your banker. If these are some for if you're new to the bank, I would say to ask what happens if I spend more money than is available in my account. That's something that I think everybody should know. And you should know before you open your account how your bank is going to handle that. What are the minimum balance requirements? A lot of people come in, they say, can I open an account? But they don't really dig any deeper. They don't ask, are there minimum balance requirements? What type of things do I need to keep in my account to keep it active? And then third, can I review the account opening disclosures? So this is something that I'd recommend asking for ahead of time and taking home and looking at yourself. Because there's a lot of words that get said to you when you open a bank account, and it's hard to absorb it all at once. So I would recommend trying to take those home, looking them over, making sure everything's right for you. If you have any questions, you can bring them back. Here's some questions for existing businesses. So just to help facilitate a better relationship with your bank, these are things that I'd recommend. If you already have a bank account somewhere, go into your bank or talk to them, ask them some questions. Some good things to help start a conversation are, am I still in the account type that works best for my business? As your business changes, there's sometimes different account types that can work better, that can give you some better benefits depending on how you do your business. Can someone sit down with me and review my banking relationship? If you just come in every day and do your deposit, you're not probably going to get the most out of what you can get with your bank. But if you sit down with somebody, you can look over things like, oh, I've been getting this account maintenance fee all year and I didn't realize, is there something I can do? Can I keep more money in this account? Can I do something so I don't have that cost? And then what resources and programs do you have available to protect me from fraud? Again, we'll go over fraud more in a couple minutes, but I would really recommend having a conversation with your bank about fraud. Okay, my second point, have your documents in order. And this is easier said than done for sure. And it varies a lot by institution, like the place you have your bank account. It varies by state. It varies by type of business. But in general, I would recommend these 4 things. First, TIN. That's on everybody's sheet. Did everybody get that one? TIN stands for tax ID number. So in order to open a bank account or do any type of banking, you will need a tax ID number. Some businesses, you can use your social security number. So do some research on your type of business and figure out, can you use your social security number? Are there benefits to getting a tax ID number that's separate, even if you can use your social security number? And then keep the tax ID letter. It's easy, it's free to go and register for a tax ID number, but banks will need some proof of what your tax ID number is if it's not your social security number. So you'll get a little letter that assigns you your tax ID number, and I would keep that. I would keep a binder with your documents, and if you go to make a change on your bank account, if you go to add a signer to your bank account, if you go to open a new bank account, get a loan, I would just bring that stuff with you because it just makes our job a lot easier, and then we don't have to send you back home to come back another day. Second, the name of your business. So this is just something some people don't realize that when they're first starting. When you accept payments to the bank, they have to be made out to the name of your business. And I know that sounds pretty straightforward, but sometimes if you have like a sole proprietorship, the name of your business is your name. But maybe you want to accept it to Jim's Groceries instead. How you do that is do a DBA. That's on there as well, and that stands for doing business as. And that can, depending on the state, it can be called some other things, like an assumed business name or something like that. But basically, it's just a way for your business to accept payments under a different or multiple names. And we need those to be able to accept payments into your account. And you can also do this if you've started a business and you kind of want to transition to a new name, but you don't want to start a whole new business, do a whole new business filing. You can just change your doing business as name and start accepting payments to a different business name. Number 3 is the state filing. And this is one of the ones that varies the highest, and again, this is another thing that you may have to talk to an accountant about or a lawyer about, because it varies on the state. And some people, they prefer to file their businesses in different states for tax benefits. And I can't really give you advice on that. But I do know that in order to open a bank account or do a loan or any of those kind of things, your business has to be registered and filed with the state. It has to be active. And some important things to check before you come in to do anything is who is listed on the state filing. Because if you come in and you say that you're the 100% owner of the business, but your name isn't on the state filing, that kind of is a red flag to us. So even if you've bought the business recently, we maybe need you to update the state filing before we can do something with that. What state is it active in? We just need to know that because we need to look it up and verify that it is active in whichever state it is. And then what address is listed. And this is something, if there's a variance on the address, and every bank is a little different, but it shows up as a red flag. So if you move, that's just one of the things on your huge list of addresses to change. And then other documents. So we may request bylaws, meeting minutes, organizing documents such as charters, your formation documents for your LLC. And this really depends. It varies by state, what bank you're going to, what type of thing you're doing. But if you have any type of formation documents, I'd really recommend keeping them in this binder or a folder or somewhere on your computer, just something like that, just having them available because these are things that come up really often. And these are the 4 things that most often I have to send somebody away to come back because they don't have these or because they're not updated. Okay. Next one, keep your business and personal separate. This one is pretty straightforward. It kind of overlaps into the territory of legal advice and tax advice, so I can't go super deep into it, but I will say I've seen it come up as a problem a lot in a lot of different businesses that I've worked with. And the 4 kind of reasons are tax reasons, so I can't dive really deep into that because I'm not an accountant, but for tax reasons, most of the time it's better to keep those 2 things separate. Budgeting, just for your personal budgeting, when you do anything, it's just way easier if you have one account where you can look and see all of these purchases were made for my business. Liability. So this goes into the law side, so I can't give really deep advice on this, but there are a lot of liability benefits to keeping your business completely separate from your personal, depending on what kind of business you have. And then the last one is fraud. It's just easier to see fraud and it's easier to protect yourself from fraud if you have your personal and your business separate. Okay, the fourth one is protect yourself from fraud. And kind of like I said before, if you take anything away and home from this presentation, it would be to have a conversation about fraud with your bank. Okay, everybody, what did you put for the answer of what percentage of businesses were targeted by fraudsters last year? Anybody? Huh?
I'd say 100%.
Probably, yeah. And statistically, it's 80%. But it is, I mean, we have a hard time, no, I'd say 100. I think in a way that we can measure and see, it's 80%, which means that there's a huge amount that's going unnoticed. Out of the people in this room, 8 of you are going to be targeted by fraud. So common types of fraud include payment fraud. So this means stolen and counterfeit checks, altered checks. So if you write a check, a legitimate check to somebody, and they alter it for the payment amount or who it's paid to, and then unauthorized ACH debits, utilities and loans. I put ACH on here. Does everybody know what ACH means?
Automated clearinghouse.
Nice. Yes, that's true. Automated clearinghouse. And I don't really know what that means relative to what it is, but what it is it's anything that goes directly into your account via account and routing number. So it's if you do payroll, it usually comes in ACH. It's things that aren't a debit card and aren't a wire. They usually come in ACH. Debit card fraud. This is the most common and widespread type of fraud. It happens every single day through a million ways. There's not any super good way to protect yourself from it. It just is a fact of life, kind of. But most debit cards and credit cards are protected either by the bank or by the person that does the card, like Visa, MasterCard, those kind of things. But this is one of the biggest ones, is debit card fraud. And the last one is cyber attacks. So these are phishing scams, malware, ransomware, email takeover, phone scams. And this is really common as well. And this one is getting much higher. Payment fraud has kind of always been around since the invention of bank accounts. Cyber attacks are kind of newer. So we're still finding ways to kind of protect from cyber attacks, whereas payment fraud has been around forever. And so we kind of know how to handle it at this point. These are my top 3 things I would say to help protect yourself from fraud. The first one is never give anyone security codes over the phone. Even if you think you know who you're talking to, even if it really makes sense what they gave you, even if it's somebody trying to help you and they're just saying, I need to verify who you are, so I'm gonna send you a security code, can you read it to me over the phone? Don't do it. 99.9% of the time, it's going to be somebody trying to log in to something or get some personal information about you. When in doubt, hang up the phone and call somebody that you know. Anybody that's legitimate is not going to ask you to give a security code over the phone. And if somebody is spoofing a number, which can really happen, so it looks like your bank is calling you and they're asking you for something, if you hang up and you call your bank back, that's the best way to just double check you're talking to who you want to talk to. The next one is look into bank programs to prevent payment fraud. So like I said, payment fraud has been around forever. Banks have a lot of ways that they can help with it. I will show you a slide next that shows some of the ways that Umpqua Bank has to prevent payment fraud. And I think a lot of banks have really similar programs. And this third one, use credit cards whenever possible for online purchases. And this one I just say because your credit card number is most likely going to get hacked or stolen if you use it online at some point. It's just going to happen. Or if you have it on Amazon, anywhere like that, most likely over the time of a few years, you're going to have some credit card fraud. If you have your debit card on there, when that fraud happens, you are still protected, but you're out your own money in the meantime while the fraud department gets that figured out. If you do a credit card, you're still protected and you're not out your own money in the meantime. So when they cancel that credit card and do the dispute for you, you still have your money in your bank account. So this is why I really recommend that you use a credit card on online purchases. And this is for your personal or your business. Just in general, I would really recommend this. I would also, the main point, check your statements and online banking frequently. Some people are a little bit nervous about online banking because they don't want that information online. That's something that I've heard quite a bit, but your information's already online. And I see more often than I see people's online banking get hacked, I see people getting payment fraud of some kind or a debit card problem that they don't see because they don't have online banking, because they can't check it every day. So they have to wait until their statements come in the mail. So that's a month that something's going on in your account and you don't know. So I would recommend have online banking, check it frequently. If you see something that kind of freaks you out, reach out to your bank ASAP. We have a whole team of people. Every bank has a whole team of people that's their primary job, is just working on fraud, getting you your money back, protecting you, making sure that you don't lose your money. Okay, these are some payment fraud prevention tools. So these are some programs that we have at Umpqua Bank, and I'm sure a lot of places have, to help with your business to prevent from payment fraud. And these are they're complicated words, but they're pretty simple concepts. So positive pay and reverse positive pay are just two systems where we block checks that aren't authorized by you. So with check positive pay, you make a list of every check you write, and if a check comes through to us and it's not on that list, we reject it automatically. Reverse positive pay is the opposite. We reject all checks, but we give you a list every day and you can approve specific ones off that list if you'd like. ACH block is just blocking ACHs. And then ACH positive pay is the same concept with the checks, but with ACHs, so things that come directly out of your account, not checks. And these are more helpful, I would say, for businesses that do a large amount of payments in and out. But if you have any size of business, it can still be helpful for you as well. And we have a lot of people that use this if they are paying a lot of employees, or if they've had fraud before. This is one way. If you've had fraud on your account through your account and routing number, usually we require that you close your account and open a new one just because your account number is compromised. But if you put one of these things in place, then we'll let you keep the same account number, because that can be a hassle, because we're so positive that this will keep any fraud from happening in your account. If you have this, we won't make you have a new account number. This is a little diagram that was made. It's a workflow. So basically it just says your business, you have matched checks and unmatched checks. If they're unmatched, we send them to you. And you can choose to accept or reject them. If they're matched to the list that you gave us, then we approve the check to go through. As in kind of small words, because I didn't make this slide, but it's just kind of a visual of how the positive pay works. Okay, my final tip is have a financial emergency backup plan. It can happen to you. Everybody kind of feels like, I have a pretty small business, I'm not going to have any financial emergencies. I have a really good customer base. I've never had any problem before. But here are some things that have happened to my customers that I've seen, and reasons why I think that every business should have a financial emergency backup plan. I had one customer with an over-budget contractor. So then the customer was left, either they have a half-finished job or they had to come up with some more money so that the contractor could finish the project. And I've seen that happen multiple times. Unexpected legal fees. I've seen several businesses have some unexpected legal fees. I've had some issues with people that are renting their house. I've had issues with people's landlords. I've had issues with a customer that was unhappy about stuff and wanted some money back. But unexpected legal fees can come up with any size of business. Outstanding invoices. So a lot of businesses invoice their customers, and I've had several businesses in the last couple years that have worked with places that just take a while to pay their invoices. So you know that money's coming, it's going to come at some point, but how do you pay your employees in the meantime? Utilities and building repairs. So this is something like a pipe breaks and all of a sudden your water bill is 5 times higher than you thought it was going to be. Your building needs some repairs. Somebody broke a window, those kind of things. This one is applicable to everybody, a global pandemic. Hopefully this won't happen again, but you never know. I mean, this is something that affected every single size of business a couple years ago. And currently right now in our community, the Pullman downtown construction. You never know when something like that can happen to you and affect you by something around you and keeping your customers from coming to your business. So these are some reasons why I think you need a backup plan. And here are some things that I've seen really work to help customers prepare. One, have a tax account. So this I just say because I've seen a lot of people have a tax bill that's a lot higher than they expect, or they just are so focused on running their business that when the tax payment comes, they're not quite ready for it. So I recommend have a separate account that you set aside some money for, a little bit out of every money that comes in, just to pay your taxes. And if you have extra, that's a bonus for you. But I think having this, I've seen really make some big differences, especially on the small side, because it's hard to manage that when you're a little bit smaller. 2, this one is easier said than done, have an emergency savings. This isn't possible for every business, and it'll depend on a lot of things, but if you have a little bit of extra money, I would really recommend having emergency savings just for a rainy day, for any of those emergencies we talked about before, just to have some peace of mind. But again, like I said, I know that this isn't always possible, so we have some other things we can do. Another thing I recommend to prepare is maintain a good account status with your bank. And the reason I say this is because if you have an emergency, if you have a good account status most of the time, then there are things we can do to help you with that emergency. If your account is negative every single day, if it's a little bit extra negative one day, there is not a lot that we can do because you've showed a history of not being good at managing your money. But if you have a good account status with us and you say, hey, I have this emergency coming up, you're way more likely to be in a place that we can do something to help you. And I see it, unfortunately, a lot of the times when people need help, they're not in a position to get help. So that's why I recommend that you prepare ahead of time. 4, a line of credit. So credit in general and having debt and loans is a little bit of a scary thing. But there are options of things that you can have that aren't going to cost you a lot of money. They aren't going to be a big weight of debt on your shoulders, but they are a good backup in case an emergency happens, in case you have outstanding invoices, money that you know is coming, but you need to pay your employees today. Lines of credit. There's one that we just recently started doing here at Umpqua Bank called an SBA Express. And it's through the SBA, one of our partners, and it actually has no annual fee. So if you have this, it's a really good backup line of credit. It's not going to cost you anything unless you use it. So something like that is really what I'd recommend to look into, just as an emergency backup for your business. So if something happens, you're not out on the streets. And 5, get to know emergency programs. Ask your bankers what type of emergency programs that they have. Get prepared. Something I mentioned before, Paychecks. They are a partner that we have that does payroll, and they have a program where if you have some outstanding invoices, they will pay your payroll for you, I think twice a year or something like that. So there's a lot of programs that a lot of people don't know about, and when they get in a bad situation, they just kind of panic. But if you know ahead of time, if something happens, I have this as a backup, that will really take a lot of weight off your shoulders. This is something I always say, it's kind of cheesy, but better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And this is something somebody said to me a long time ago, and it's just always kind of stuck with me. It's better to have an emergency plan. It's better to have an emergency savings. It's better to have a line of credit and not need it than need it and not have it. If you have something prepared before you need it, if you're in a bad financial situation, chances are your loan will be more expensive or you won't qualify. And it makes me really sad when I see people come sit down with me and they say, I can't pay my rent next month, but I can't get them a loan in time, or I can't because they haven't had income coming in for a while, they don't qualify for something. So have something prepared ahead of time, and hopefully you won't need it. But if you do, it'll be there. Okay, that was my last point. Do we have any questions? I know I said a lot of words to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does your personal credit affect your business credit or vice versa?
Yes, it can. It depends on the type of business and the type of business loan. But most of the time, you are your business. You're the grantor for your business. You're the one supporting your business. So especially in smaller businesses, your personal credit can have a big effect. In a huge corporation, maybe no. Because there's multiple people that it's divided across. But if it's, a single member LLC, if it's a sole proprietorship, your personal credit can have an effect. And there are two separate things. There's a business, it's not a credit score, but there's like a business score that we see when we go through for business loans. But if your personal credit has if you have a lot of debt personally, or if you have like a lot of late payments, things like that, they can affect going to get a loan for your business.
And another one too. So you mentioned opening a separate account, for example, for taxes. So I guess that answer is it okay to have multiple accounts? Is that a problem?
Yeah.
But then also, should that tax account also be on the business side?
Yes, I would recommend that you do it. So it's okay to have multiple accounts. There's nothing against multiple accounts. And in fact, I have one business customer that in order to budget for themselves, they have 7 checking accounts. And when they get something that comes in, they have an intake account, and then they have like a purchasing account, a payroll account, a rent account, and they just split everything, a tax account, and they split everything up. And that's what works best for them. And that's okay. There's nobody that's going to look at it and say, why do you have 7 accounts? I mean, it's okay. It's more, are those accounts in good standing? It's not something like credit, right? Where if you have 7 credit cards, that can affect something. Having a bank account, it's fine to have multiple. And in fact, I'd recommend it in most circumstances.
You're talking about, I guess for Umpqua, for a business account, you're talking about minimums required to waive any fees. Are the accounts that you have under that business an aggregate amount to waive that fee, or would you have to make sure you had X on each account?
Yeah, it depends on the account type. And I would say we have some flexibility, right? So we have a minimum balance requirement. For most accounts, it's per account. But if you come in and talk to your banker, like I would recommend doing just in general, and just telling them, this is my plan, what can you do? I can make the judgment to submit a waiver for some accounts. So if you say, I have a tax account, it's going to be empty for this many months of the year after I pay my taxes. I don't want to try and keep a minimum balance requirement in there. Can you help me out? But I want to do something to kind of keep my business going. A lot of the times I can help you, especially if you have a regular account that you keep the minimum balance in. So yeah, I would definitely recommend with things like that you sit down and talk to your banker, because they can do a lot of things. If you accidentally went negative one time and it's the only time you've ever done it, a lot of the times if you sit down with someone and you say, hey, can you waive this fee for me? I'm a really good customer. I made a mistake. Sometimes they can do it. And I can't speak for every banker and I can't speak for every situation, but I'd recommend having a relationship with them, because you're going to get a lot more out of your banking relationship if you have those conversations.
And then when you talk about the ACH positive checks on the fraud side, is that just an online dashboard that they log in on Umpqua and just say, oh, hey, approve these, don't approve these?
Yep. And that would be a system. So that is a partner department to ours that helps run those and get that set up. But yes, it's on online banking. So our customers that have that, the 2 different ways, the reverse positive pay or the positive pay, they either every time they write a check, they put those numbers in their dashboard, or vice versa, they get a list submitted to them and they approve or decline each one.
And then for your business credit score, we'll just call that for now. Is that based on the TIN? Or is that based on?
Yep. So it's based on the tax ID number of your business. So when you submit a business loan application, you would do it based on the tax ID number, and kind of everything that has to do with banking or finance is attached to that tax ID number. And that's why in some cases you can use your social security number. If it's a sole proprietorship, you are your business. You're the only one, so you can use your social security number. Or if it's a single member LLC, also a lot of the times you can use your social security number for those. But basically the TIN, the reason why we call it that, the tax ID number, is because it's the ID number that attaches you to your money. And so when we run that, we can kind of get an idea of where you're at.
So then what are the top ways to build your TIN credit score?
So it's a little more complicated with business banking, but I would say it's kind of similar to your personal. So it's just having a good standing, having income. If your income looks good, your debt to income ratio, as long as your personal credit, if you don't have a lot of personal debt, that always helps if your personal credit score is good. But it's kind of complicated. It's hard to give an easy answer for that because as far as lending goes, there's so much that goes into it. And I'm not an underwriter, so what my job is to help create the best application I can with you, and then somebody that doesn't know you and hasn't met you, to avoid discrimination, looks at that application and makes that decision. So there's a lot of things that can go into it, and with business loans, we have a little more flexibility because we can submit basically, at least at Umpqua Bank, we can submit a loan story, which basically just says, I've known this customer for this long. They're a part of the community. They do this, even though their last year's finances wasn't as good as normal. This is why. They normally have this much money come in. They have this many outstanding invoices. We have a little more flexibility to explain why we think we should get a loan for you. But there's a lot that goes into it. So I don't have a great answer for that, but I could make a presentation just on lending too, if that would be helpful.
So a friend of mine just lost a significant amount of money because of fraud.
Okay.
This independent business owner runs most of all the financials through QuickBooks.
Yeah.
And so she received an email from the company that she trusts. And
Yeah.
for a while, they said they overpaid. And they checked their account and saw that there was an X amount of money that was deposited, but I guess it was through like credit line or something.
Yeah.
So what they ended up doing, because they trusted them, should have called, but didn't, ACH that money back to them.
Yeah.
And then QuickBooks supposedly has some fraud thing, but didn't catch it for like a week. And once they found out, the individual that paid them canceled whatever on their end. But because she used ACH, is there no recourse to get that money back?
It depends. So that would be something I'd have to submit. It depends on the situation. That would be something I'd have to submit to my fraud team. On that, ACHs are tough because once you send those, you can't get it back. And those and wires are where we, as a bank, we see the most like hard losses, like money that we can't get back because it's tough. And that's a situation we see a lot. And we see the same thing. We see people in smaller ways. They send you money over Facebook Marketplace and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I pressed 600, but I meant to press 60. Will you send the rest back? And then they send the rest back and then it gets declined and then you're out all that money that you sent back.
And like with business, there's no type of insurance or anything, correct?
That's a good question. There might be some insurance. I do know you're protected up to a certain amount in your account because we as a bank, we take losses sometimes. But in that situation, I think it's kind of tough because she decided to send that money and the decision in her doing it is a little different than somebody fraudulently getting her account number and taking the money out. But that's, again, where I'd recommend, we have a whole fraud team. And if your business is doing a lot of ACH, I would sit you down with my specialist and she could tell you the exact specifics and the laws, how much you're protected for, what you should do to protect your account. Because I'm kind of a generic person, right? So I can help you connect to somebody that would be able to give you more specifics. And that is sad for your friend because that's one of the tough ones.
On fraud, what are some of the most specific scenarios Because I know
Scenario-
front end or digital marketing, phishing is probably
Yeah.
the most common ones we'll see.
I would say kind of his situation is the one we see the most commonly. We see a lot of the times people sending checks in the mail. And then saying, oh, we paid too much, will you send the rest back? That's the most common one. I see that one a lot. I see it happen on the personal side. They will say, oh, I'm gonna send you this check for this much money. You're gonna test the bank wire system and I'll give you $50 to do it, and you deposit $100, send $50 to me, and then you keep $50 for yourself. I see that kind of stuff all the time. I see wire fraud happen a lot because once you send a wire, you can't send it back. You can request to have it back, but it's not guaranteed that it'll come back. And so we see people sending money to their online lovers all the time. They see them sending money to friends to help them start businesses all the time. But like I said, scenarios like his are the most common. We also see people's email get hacked, and then they will email the bank and ask the bank to send money to a certain place. And we have, here at least, we have some guidelines. Like if we get an email from a customer, we have to do a callback before we do any money transfers. And we have to talk to somebody in person, ask them their security questions. And I think most banks probably have things like that. But every once in a while, things are just so convincing that it gets through even the best. Yeah, and that's why here we use like passwords and security questions a lot. Because if I talk to somebody and it kind of sounds like them over the phone, I mean, if they don't know the answer to the password, I have to decline it. So and they have to set those up in person, face to face. So, I mean, somebody can always find out your security questions. These people are really smart. They can figure out a way around everything. But I will say that most of the time, what we see is they try to take like the low-hanging fruit. If you're not easy to hack, there's a lot of people that are easy to hack. So if you just do some things to protect yourself, that'll really make a big difference. I know my dad, he works in IT, and he said they did something one time where if you just fold your sticky note with your password on it, if it's on your desk, your chances of somebody hacking your computer goes down like 80%. Like if you just put that tiny barrier, because if they see the sticky note open and see the password, they'll just type it right in and try to hack you. But if you just fold it, if you put any barrier to entry, there's somebody who didn't out there, so they'll try and move on. But there's always a chance. If you have money, somebody's gonna try and get it. They're all over, they're getting really smart. They have all types of they always are trying something new, and we're having to put new security systems in place. But another thing to what he was talking about that I see really commonly is phone number spoofing. So it looks like it's coming, and that's something that's really easy to do. So it looks like it's a call coming from the bank, and that's why I always recommend hang up and call somebody that you know. If it seems fishy at all, if they're asking any kind of information, if it seems sketchy at all, if it's something you weren't expecting. Just because we see a lot of the times it looks like, oh, Umpqua Bank is calling me and they're saying, hey, can you confirm your security question for me? I didn't write it down correctly. So, something like that. If it seems sketchy, just hang up, call back, come somewhere in person. It'll go a long way.
How do you feel about the payment pancreas? So small business with e-commerce.
Yeah.
A lot of platforms will have, for instance, like PayPal and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I guess that system from like a PayPal into a business account or other things, is there a way to optimize that? And I guess what is risk there?
Yeah, so I will say I don't work a lot with those because we have our own point of sale system, merchant services department. I would say anything that you are keeping any banking information in, there's going to be a risk. So if you connect it to your online banking, because we see people's PayPal get hacked more often than we see their online banking get hacked, So I would say just make sure that you have a really secure password and don't give people your codes over the phone. But there's some type of risk involved with anything. If you're putting your information out anywhere, there's some type of risk. And anytime you write a check, your account and routing number is out there in the world. And so it's just kind of a risk of doing business. It's like swiping your debit card or your credit card. That number's out there. And that's why we recommend some systems like internally already on your account. If you're doing a lot of those payments, having that ACH block in place, or having the check positive pay in place, those will really help protect you.